Hey, welcome to Speaking Prowess with Camden and Otis McGregor. Yes, father son team here for you, and to talk about how to communicate and how we communicate with tribe and purpose amongst each other. And the first thing we want to do, because we're sharing four things with you. First one we want to talk about, and we believe it's the foundation, and that's why we put it up first, and that is what we call the trust triad of leadership because you got to have trust. Trust is the foundation for all successful leaders and all successful business partnerships and communication. Because if you can't trust what the other person says, it ain't communicating, right? So here's what the trust triad is. So triad, first off, triangle, right? So triangle, three sides. The base of the triangle is trust yourself because you have to trust and believe in yourself and understand that the decisions that you make and the information that you share is correct with the data and the information you have in the time that you share it. It doesn't mean it can't change because it can, because we all know things change, nothing stays the same. So, bottom of your triangle, the base of the trust triad is trust yourself. Now, coming up on the other side is trust your team. And what I mean by that is I have to trust my team to do the job that I hired them to do. Otherwise, why am I paying them? Why are they there? Why are they part of our organization? I have to trust them to do their job because if I don't trust them, then guess what? I have to over supervise, AKA micromanage. And we all know micromanaging is not good for you as a leader, nor is it good for the team. So you have to trust them to do their job. They have to understand what to do, how to do it, and you have to provide them the resources. And then trust them to do it. Trust them to learn. Trust that they understand what you're telling them to do and follow up. Then, when those two pieces are in place of the triad, you get the third leg, and that is your team trusts you. They believe that what you do and what you say is for the best interest of the team and the organization. They don't look at what you say and what you may direct to be done as this is only for Otis to get a promotion or Otis to get a better bonus. No, they look at it like, okay, so that's how we're going to have greater success. That's how we're going to grow the business, which means me as a team member, guess what? When the business grows, I get more opportunity to grow. I get pay raises, I get bonuses. That's what we're talking about. So the trust triad is trust yourself, trust your team, and the team trusts you. Now I'm going to turn it over to Camden, and he's going to talk about encoding, decoding, and noise.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Yeah, trust is the foundation of everything inside of communication. If you don't trust yourself, how can you be confident communicating to other people inside of your team, right? All starts with trust. But the next piece I want to talk about is really just a basic aspect of communication and looking at the systems that are at play while we're communicating with people. And so this goes for one-on-one communication inside of a group, whatever it is. The basics there are you as the speaker, you are encoding the message, you are the encoder. Whatever you are saying to that person on your team, you are encoding the message using your own jargon, using your own perspective, your own biases, all those different things, your own language, who you are, your own personality, right? That's what goes into encoding the message. Then on the other end, you have the other person there, which, when it comes down to it, communication is just all about people, understanding people. And you have to understand them as the decoder, going through that decoding process of your message, of understanding their own biases, their perspective, and those kind of things, so that shapes the way that your words come out. To them, it might sound slightly different, right? When it comes down to jargon's the best example of this. That if you have some, I always joke about the, scientist, the textbook jargon, and all those kind of things. If you're throwing around that jargon to somebody who doesn't know it, even though you're just saying something smart that could help them, it might come off like you are trying to talk like you're above them because you're using these big words that they don't understand. That's how they decoded your message, even though you didn't encode it that way. So you have to understand their perspective so you can communicate with them more effectively there, because it's all just about communicating effectively as a leader. The third variable at play here when it comes into this situation, that communication system, is noise. And there's a lot of different forms of this. There's the literal noise. You know, if you're like me out coaching rugby at Rincon Park here in Tucson, occasionally those A10s are flying overhead, and that's real noise that messes up my communication, right? There's also other kinds of noise. If I'm communicating with one person on the team, really what is essentially a one-on-one conversation, and there's a bunch of people around, that creates a lot of noise. That creates a lot of distraction for the person I'm communicating with. Just like a dog barking right now could create a lot of distractions, right? But we're leaving that in because it is just a perfect use of noise. Great timing there. Thank you, Lukey and Gumbo, for this perfect timing talking about noise. But understanding how you encode a message, how you communicate as a leader, so that you can understand then what that message looks like, how somebody might decode that message based on their own perspective, their own background, all of those different pieces there. And understanding the noise inside of your environment, whether that be a barking dog, a plane flying overhead, or just a bunch of people looking at you, that all creates noise that can change how those messages are interpreted. And this really, the reason I wanted to include this for the tips is because these different pieces there, it's really basic, but when you start to think about those different variables moving around, you can start to isolate what may go wrong inside of a communication breakdown. You know, it's no longer just, ooh, that didn't go well. Oh gosh, that blew up in my face. It's I didn't communicate clearly enough, or Otis didn't understand what I was communicating because of his perspective. Either way, trying to pinpoint those breakdowns in the communication so you can prevent that from happening in the next go around. So that's what encoding, decoding, and noise is, and that's how it can help you to become a more effective communicator as a leader. Dad, I'll throw that back over to you. Talking about some noise, there's some noise involved when it comes to long distance leadership, isn't there?
Boy, there is, and there's a lot of distractions, not just in the direct communication and trying to talk on a mobile phone or over the internet and a Zoom call. You know, the biggest thing that you lose in long distance communication, long distance leadership, is the water cooler. It's the pass by that I like to think of it. You know, yeah, I call it a water cooler. Nobody calls it a water cooler. Think about it when you go get a cup of coffee. When everybody's in the break room, you go get a cup of coffee and you go, "Hey, Joe, man, I'm glad I saw you because you just reminded me about this thing we got going on." That doesn't happen when we're all separated. So, how do you fix that? You have to have a communications plan. And the communications plan is part of your overall business plan. So you have to have a plan of where we're going. What's our vision? What do we want to accomplish? What do we want to do? And then each person should understand what their thresholds are and their left and right limits. In other words, here's my job. Here's the lane that I am to work in. Over here, don't need to go over there unless I'm told, but my focus area is here. I'm staying in my lane. Driving down the highway, think about that. Staying in my lane between the stripes. But I also have to have a threshold. And a threshold is I have the individual authority to commit, execute, do certain things to a point. The simplest example is you give somebody a credit card in your company and you say, hey, you can spend up to $99.99. If it's $100 or more, you need to come get approval. This is where you differentiate success, though. You can put those things in place, a plan, left and right limit, a threshold, but you know what? Many, and I've had them as clients, businesses fail to have a communication plan. So if I want to buy something that is more than $100, how do I get that approval? What's the process? That's the system we have to create. And oh, by the way, guy who has the authority, retains the authority to purchase over $100 or whatever that threshold may be, you better have a plan in place to answer. Because I've worked with clients where the team ends up sitting around waiting for the boss to get back to them. And the boss, the inbox, the old fashioned inbox, if you will, you know, or the red number on your email inbox just keeps going up and up and up. And you sit around and wait, and a missed opportunity could very well happen because you became a fail point because you did not have a excellent communication plan to understand what to do, how somebody comes to you and asks you, what's next? How do I move forward? So, to review, you got to have a plan. You got to have left and right limits, and you got to have a threshold. And the most important part of all that is the communication plan. How does your team talk to you, and how do you talk to your team? Now, Camden, I'm going to turn it back over to you to wrap us up with why.
Yes, sir. And I just add one thing there because this all connects in, like we were saying at the very beginning. It all starts with trust, encoding, decoding noise. That all translates into another medium. If you're talking about emails, texts, messages on Slack, whatever that is, that all exists inside of that environment as well. Whatever environment you're communicating in, there's going to be noise. There's going to be that encoding, decoding problem. Going into the why, another thing that touches into every aspect of communication, or at least it should, is that you need to understand your why when you are going into a conversation, when you're getting ready to send an email, whatever that form of communication is. And the reason you need to understand your why is because it helps you be purposeful. Here at Tribe and Purpose, we always talk about purpose, right? Understanding your purpose and understanding how this conversation can contribute to that. And that doesn't mean that you're, trying to be the puppet master pulling strings, making everything go right to your plan. That's not at all what it is, really. And what it comes down to is being able to understand the outcome of the conversation, the purpose of that conversation, so that you can work towards that and make sure you are actually on topic. We all hate how long meetings can run. The reason that meetings run so long is because we don't understand the why behind them most of the time. Take an hour-long meeting inside of your business, make it 15 minutes with an extra 15 minutes of prep, and really cutting down to what you want to talk about in that meeting, what that why is, and so you can work towards that outcome. If you keep everything on track there, that hour-long meeting becomes a 15-minute meeting really, really quick, right? You can save a lot of time just by understanding the why in the conversation. And that why can be something as simple as wanting to learn from somebody in your team, helping to understand their perspective, maybe so you can help fix a decoding problem that you ran into earlier in a conversation, whatever that is. Going in with that open mind of being present and mindful of the person, just listening can be a really important goal of a lot of the time inside of those conversations, especially as a leader. You talk about leveling down to your team and, really just being there, being personable with them. A lot of that comes down to just dropping down as a leader so that you can communicate with them about these things that, it's not contributing to the organization's purpose. You're not working towards those goals necessarily, but by becoming closer together, we're still working in that same direction. We're still being effective communicators, and it all adds in together with that. So the why is really important, understanding your purpose, how that plays into each conversation you're having, and then what is just the goal behind that conversation? Are you here to just be present, to listen to somebody? Is somebody stressed out at work and they just need to vent to you for 2-3 minutes? If that's the goal, you just need to get vented to. That's a good goal. That is a great why behind that conversation. It also could be to convince your boss to, sign off on a new project that you've been pitching. Whatever it is, that goal, that why is essential to you being an effective communicator. It ties into the trust, it ties into the encoding, decoding, and noise, and it ties into the long distance aspect there. The better that you understand the why, those parameters that you were talking about in your highway analogy, Dad, the better understand the why, the better you can help to understand those parameters there. So I want to throw it over to you before I close this out, Dad. Any closing thoughts talking about effectively communicating as a leader?
I think understanding the why, the purpose, the reason you're having the meeting, and the reason that each individual is there. I've seen way too many clients over the years that will fill a room up with everybody. And I challenged them. I said, "How much is that meeting costing you?" And you do the salary count. And okay, well, how many of those people really need to be there? And then you realize they don't. They could read meeting notes, or somebody could give them a quick synopsis, maybe an email summary. Something like that is so much more effective and efficient. And by the way, speaking of that, if you're not capturing that stuff right while you're doing it, taking notes and following up, who has the responsibility of X, you're wasting your time. Don't waste your time in a meeting. Let you get to work. get the job done.
Yes, sir. And in the spirit of getting to work, we implore you to take at least one of these tips looking at your business over this next week. Relax over the weekend, but starting on Monday, how can you implement one of these 4 tips inside of your business in order to communicate more effectively with your team? And if you do want to communicate more effectively, then when the courses go live, we will have a course on communicating effectively as a leader with a lot more great content all about communication and leadership and tribe and purpose. So thank you guys so much for your time today. Thank you, Sifu Raphael, and thank you to all the other great speakers here at Speaking Prowess.